So welcome back, everybody. I think that's probably us. So my job is to do the talk on the third week of the Noble Eightfold Path. So for those who maybe weren't here, I'll give a bit of a recap in a minute. So in the first week, we looked at perfect vision and the first stage of the path. Then last week, we looked at perfect emotion, the second stage. And this week, I've got the task of talking about perfect speech. So I'll aim to give the perfect speech about perfect speech. So we'll see how it goes. Doing it with mime or photography might be a bit difficult, so I'm going to do it with speech. So I'll give a bit of a recap on the last few weeks, particularly for those who maybe weren't here and for those who've forgotten what was said. So the first part of the path is perfect vision. So this is the start of the path, and you could say it's a glimpse of how things are, however brief. So these things are very common. Many people have had these kinds of experiences, which can occur at any time. But as our founder made it clear, that by doing Dharma practice, by practicing meditation, friendship, study, puja, ethics, everything to do with the Buddhist path, we make it much more likely that these moments of vision will happen. He talks in terms of making ourselves into a lightning conductor so that the lightning strikes us rather than anything else. So that's quite a nice image. So that's you could say how the path starts in earnest, proper, when these moments of vision happen. But these glimpses of vision don't transform us in one go. So this perfect vision is the path of vision, and the other 7 stages of the path, they're all the transformation which is required to basically fully embody ultimately these moments of vision, so that this vision informs the whole of our life, the whole of our being. So yes, so the 7 next limbs of the path, they're involved in the transformation of the whole of ourselves, ultimately in line with the vision that has arisen. But these moments of vision may happen at any time, and throughout the course of our Dharma life. With a lot of people, there'll be quite a few of these, however small. So that's the first stage, that of perfect vision. And last week, Amarachandra spoke about the second stage, perfect emotion. So the important point which Sangharakshita makes here is that we may have sort of good intentions up here in the head, and we may have some good ideas, but until our emotions, we enlist the cooperations of our emotions, then not too much is going to happen in a very committed kind of way. So this emotion, the emotions which are being talked about, which is glossed as perfect emotion, you could describe it as the descent of this vision into our emotional lives. So the kind of things that this could manifest as would be loving kindness, as we meditated in the first half. Loving kindness is, in some sense, a perfect emotion. I'll talk about this word "perfect" in a minute, why it might be problematic, but it also might be useful. And similarly, the emotion which is the Buddhist tradition called Shraddha, which is something like confidence and trust in the ideals of Buddhism, in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So so metta and this Shraddha, this confidence and trust, they are aspects, you could say, of perfect emotion. And it's these kind of things which can be really helpful as we attempt to practice the Dharma. They give us sort of some emotional weight, some emotional wholeheartedness in our practice of the path. Now, you may have read some books which translate perfect vision as something like right view. That's one way it might be translated in some translators. But Sangharakshita thought perfect vision was quite a good way of describing what's being talked about. And the word perfect is a rendering of the Pali word samyak. But this word samyak could also be rendered in different ways, like complete, integral, or whole. These are other ways we could understand this word samyak. And the word perfect has a bit of a problem, maybe for some people, including myself, I think. But it's maybe perfect in terms of not being afflicted by greed, hatred, or delusion. Maybe you could talk about it as being perfect in that way. Although perfect is probably not the best word, it has been a bit problematic. Anyway, but I'll continue to use the word perfect. So if you can assume that I also mean integral, whole, and complete in that, then we'll get an idea of what's being talked about. So that's what we've done up till now over the last 2 weeks. Now I'll say a little bit about speech. And so I was reflecting more. Well, I've got definitely quite a strong interest and feeling for the speech precepts. I think, well, why is that? And it occurred to me as I was preparing this talk, it's actually quite a lot to do with the fact that I've been a musician for more than 50 years. And when we're talking about speech here, we're not only talking about speech, we're talking about the communication more wholly. So we're talking about gesture, we're talking about written communication, texting, all the different ways, email, letter writing, report writing, as well as speech. So it's basically the principle is communication. And it occurred to me that in a way, music is sort of defining a bit of an ideal in terms of communication. So a little bit later, I'll be talking about the different aspects of speech. So it needs to be truthful, it needs to be kindly, it needs to be meaningful, and it needs to be harmonious. Now, we could look at all those things quite helpfully in terms of what a good performance of music would be communicating, at least in a metaphorical sense. We could see music as being something like hinting at kind of ideal communication. Anyway, this is my idea of why I like the speech precepts. I've got a bit of a feeling for them, and I suspect it comes from having a strong connection to music and that form of communication having something of a more ideal nature. So speech, it sort of happens here. So it's sort of between here and here. So it's got aspects of the cognitive, the rational, because we need to use words, but it's also heart-based. So it's sort of yes, so it basically uses or makes, what's the word? It's informed by our thoughts and our emotions. That's an aspect of what speech is like. So we could say that unless we've transformed our thoughts and our emotions, our speech won't be fully transformed. So it being sort of speech is affected by thoughts and emotions, so we need to transform both the thoughts and emotions to actually fully transform our speech. So we need perfect emotion, and also we need, although the first stage of the path is described as vision, it's not necessarily thought as such, but I strongly suspect that perfect vision and study of the Dharma can really affect how we think about things. So our thoughts, as well as vision, are going to affect how we speak, and our emotional landscape will also affect how we speak. So we need to transform both of those. So get out my board. Well, it's not my board, it's a board. I'll be talking about when talking about speech. I'll be using the scheme of the 4 speech precepts, which I think they're very traditional, and that these are the 4 speech precepts which order members undertake to undertake as practice principles when they get ordained into our movement. So I'll just say, just very briefly mention what these are. Some of them will be reasonably clear. So the first one is abstaining from untruthful speech, and on the positive side, to practice truthful speech. So this is this is the fundamental one. We're not really going to get anywhere without this one. And then the second one, we're not speaking harshly, and we're going to practice kindly speech. And the third one is abstaining from frivolous or unnecessary speech. And on the positive side, we practice speech which is helpful, meaningful, we might say. And on the fourth one is abstaining from slanderous speech, speaking unnecessarily ill or of other people behind their back. And we're practicing harmonious speech, which promotes harmony between people. We'll say a little bit more about these as we go along, but something which Sangharakshita was very good on. He regarded these as a bit of a hierarchy. So we start off with truthful speech, not going to get anywhere without speaking truthfully. But the next 3, the kindly speech, the helpful speech, and the harmonious speech, these, you could say, they temper truthful speech, because just having truthful speech doesn't give us full license to speak truth or what might be true at every time in every place. That could really cause problems, because we're not really bearing other people in mind. So so we could say that 2, 3, and 4 sort of temper the first ones, so it's more appropriate. But also we could see a bit of a hierarchy. So we start off with truthful speech, then we need to temper that with kindliness. Then we need to make sure it's helpful, and then the highest level we could say is harmonious speech, where we're promoting the harmony between ourselves and other people, and other people and other people. So I thought it was quite a useful scheme to think in terms of a hierarchy, harmonious speech being the highest, you could say, but everything is based on fundamental truthfulness. So we're going to go into groups in a few minutes. We've got a few more things to say first. Now, I wanted to say a few things about my own life, which really highlight the importance of the Sangha in relation to perfect speech. Now, about 20 years ago, I moved down from the Northwest, working in the aviation industry, to work in a Buddhist giftware business here in Cambridge, Windhorse Evolution. And when I moved down here, I was working in the warehouse of this business for about 12.5 years. And I was just really struck by the quality and the kindliness of the speech, which was pretty universal in how people communicated with each other. And I was very, very struck by that. And of course, naturally wanted to fit in. So it seems that I was sort of naturally inspired by the quality of communication and wanted to be more like that myself. So unkind and judgmental communication seemed to take much more of a backstreet as using bad language. Not that I was particularly foul-mouthed, but anyway, it sort of excised sort of like last vestiges of any tendency to speak in those terms. So much of this transformation was quite unconscious. It just happened really naturally. And if I did transgress and said something out of line, I really felt it quite keenly. I'd let myself and other people down. And one thing which we did very commonly in the Windhorse business was rejoicing in the merits of other people, particularly if it was their birthday. That was a really common thing we did, and this had a really strong effect because we started to go out of your way to look for the positive, look for the qualities in other people, which of course is a really positive way of relating to them. And of course that will inform our communication instead of focusing on just the negative, which is often rather easy to do. You tend to, the mind tends towards what's more positive, so you can see the qualities in other people and then rejoice in them. So that was very positive. So that was showing one incidence of how the exemplification of the Sangha could be really helpful in improving in my speech in this case. But remember, there was another occasion, just soon after I first started practicing the Dharma, I had some very inspiring experiences, and I was quite full of myself, and I thought, oh, I'm going to go to my next class, and I'll tell everybody about it. Get very full of myself, and I walked through the door of the Buddhist Centre in Manchester, was where the class was happening, and I thought, oh, that's the last thing I can do. I'm not going to do that at all. It's just totally inappropriate. So it's just really interesting how just going into a Sangha environment, the atmosphere just made me sort of come to my senses. I was not going to indulge in sort of rather self-centered and egocentric speech in front of other people. Is just totally inappropriate. So these are two occasions where it seems like the effect of the Sangha had a really, really positive effect on my speech or lack of speech in the second case. Before we go into groups, I just want to, if you'll indulge my poetic side, which occasionally gets an outing, and I was going to talk about the different types of positive speech in the somewhat more poetic terms. They may resonate with you or it may not. That'll be as it may. So truthful speech, when I was reflecting on it, it's as if truthful speech takes us out into the open air where we can breathe more easily and there's a sense of spaciousness. So that's what came to me about truthful speech. Now, kindly speech, as if kindly speech takes us into a beautiful garden. We're in touch with a sense of beauty and peacefulness. And meaningful speech takes us to the sea, to the seaside, and we feel stimulated and refreshed. And harmonious speech takes us to the top of a mountain above the clouds, and we feel inspired and have a sense of freedom. Anyway, these may or may not resonate with you, but that's what came to me. So that's my contribution, my poetic contribution. It's the end of it now. So now we're gonna go into groups, and we're gonna have 20 minutes for groups. And what we're gonna how many people have got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 or 17, depending on whether David joined us. So that's 4 times 4, so that's great. So I'm going to give one group one precept, and so basically you can be in a group of 4 people, and you're going to be talking about one particular precept. We've got 4 groups, 4 precepts. The maths is undeniably good. I can still remember that 4 times 4 is 16 on a good day. So what we're going to do, just 2 questions. So question 1 is, what gets in the way? What gets in the way of truthful speech? What gets in the way of kindly speech, helpful speech, or harmonious speech? That's the first question. Then, I'm writing, it's beautiful here. That's fabulous, isn't it? Then it's got all the rubbish. But anyway, so then the next one is, what's it like? What's it like to be on the receiving end of untruthful speech or truthful speech? similarly, kindly or harsh speech. So those are the two questions, and we've got about 20 minutes to do that. So what we'll do, we'll have a 20-minute discussion, then we'll collect everything sort of back together again, and maybe I'll say a few more things. We'll find out what we came up with. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got truthful speech. Then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'll have kindly speech. And 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right, down there. Do you want
Golden speech. And 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll have prominent speech. So we've got 15 minutes or so now to hear from the groups to see what they came up with. So we're going to start. With the truthful group. I hope you were. So what did you come up with? What gets in the way of truthful speech? What did you come up with there?
Doubt.
Fear for me.
Fear.
Fear of rejection.
Fear of
Fear of hurting other people.
Yeah.
Fear of being myself, I guess, a lot of the time.
Yes, fear. Yeah, I think that's a good one. That's a good observation. Yeah.
I think it also has to be applied on a person by person basis, because some people might be react fine to the truth, and sometimes you might have made a judgment where this person would not react in sort of a way, almost kind of crossing over to the harsh speech kind of thing, that actually maybe telling the truth to that person would make it a harsh speech towards that person.
Yeah. So it's fear of hurting other people. The truth might not be very palatable for them. Anything else?
Bring the timing of it.
Timing. Yeah.
Bringing the truth out.
Yeah. Did anybody say anything about how we're a little bit prone to embellish?
Exaggeration.
And so, for example, if it's getting towards dinner time and you might say to somebody, God, I'm really starving. Now, let's see, are you in danger of dying because of lack of food? Probably not. So you're probably not starving, but it makes it just seem a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more interesting, just to slightly embellish the truth there. And I think Sangharakshita is very keen to point out that we do probably do that rather more than we might we might know at first glance, that we might be prone to making things a bit more dramatic, or making ourselves look a little bit better than we really are, and other people maybe not quite so good, or if we're down on ourselves, making ourselves look really, really bad when we aren't, but maybe making ourselves look a bit more positive than maybe we deserve. Maybe quite a common thing. You might sort of bend the truth a little bit in that respect.
So we looked at that in connection with language, and how language is used, and exaggeration is part of language, and how we use exaggeration in everyday language nowadays. And so we looked at that a little bit as well.
Yeah. So something.
We identified it.
Yeah.
In the media as well, and reporting, there's so much of it. We're just bombarded by it, really.
Yeah. And what about what's it like to be on the receiving end of untruthful or truthful speech? What did you come up with there?
Very physical and painful.
If you're being lied to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or not believed.
Or not believed. Yes. Very important to have confidence that you're being believed if you tell the truth. Very painful not to have that accepted. Yeah, one thing which we haven't mentioned up till now is the importance of listening. So you can't really communicate to the best of one's ability if we don't really listen to what other people are saying. So that's a really important point. And I'm sure it was the case with me, maybe it still is to some degree, that if some conversation's going on, you got your piece you want to say. So all you're doing is waiting for this gap when you can launch in with your contribution without actually really you're just listening for the gap. You're not actually listening to what people have actually been saying. So that's maybe that's one thing which we might need to sort of tighten up our act on. And another thing which Sangratcha was keen to say, and I sort of agree with him, is that how often do we really look at the people we're communicating with? Do we really take them in? And sort of like seeing how they are, how do they look when they're saying their piece, or when we're saying our piece. So it's really important to actually properly take people in. That's definitely a part of communication, is to be really present. And it has, Sangratcha appropriately said that kindly speech is really speaking with an awareness of the other person, not just ourselves. We actually got some awareness of the other person, which means really listening to them and seeing them as clearly as we can. We are coming to the end. Yeah, looks like we've come to the end. So that's it for perfect speech. Just to remind everybody about our Dharma economy. These classes are given for free. We don't want anybody not to come to our classes because of lack of funds, but the centre does need some financial contributions to keep going. So please, if you can, make a donation. We'll have somebody to man or woman the machine out the front for those who want to pay with the card, and there's collection boxes around the centre. So that's it for next week. And next week, let's think, what's the next one? Is it perfect action next week?
I'm doing perfect action next week.
You're doing perfect action next week.
Mm-hmm.
Sadhu. So that's it for this week. So go well, and we will look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you very much.